2011 Toyota Rav 4 tools. First of all, lawnmower is making noise. My GoPro is out of battery, so quality as far as resolutions ain't gonna be great, but just gonna have to hear me out. Okay. All this, and this. Get a good closer look to this. Get a closer look if you have a big screen. Just pick up go to O'Reilly and pick up a batch, a small batch, maybe $4 or $5. Okay. You'll thank me later. Once you're underneath there, taking the pan off, the plastic one, you'll thank me later. Anyways, moving on. So, the decent jack. Oh, do not forget to put some sort of a piece of wood, like a one by underneath there, because here's the step. You see that? Yeah, here's the step. You don't want to damage that step, so put a plywood underneath there. Yeah, don't forget about that, or you screw that up. So, notice it's on a jack here. And it's on a stand here, and it's on gravel. All this is hinting for something else. The point is, I'm trying to get at is your car does not have to be leveled in order to take this bracket off. So don't stress out that if your car is halfway tilted, that you might change the bracket location, because you're gonna have to take this off. And those are 17 mil, by the way. 17 mil. 17 mil. I'm leaving this one open because I'm going to pivot this out. Why? Because look at these, and that one's in the way, and you can't screw up on the bolts because they are specific size. You see that? So you can't screw up on there. Okay. So again, just kind of give you an idea what I'm doing here. Obviously, an automatic transmission. Replace a filter and flush the fluid. If you get a closer look, you could see the gasket. And if you can see the gasket, you can already tell that the gasket has cracks in it. And that's a sign of age, right? So, it's a new vehicle, so you won't need any PCV or any of that grease stuff. It's just going to be a straight up deal. This is world standard, as they call it, Toyota automatic transmission. Mine is a 4-speed, so you're gonna have to find out where if yours has a 4-speed or a 5-speed automatic. O'Reilly says 3.5 quarts. Dealership says 6 quarts. I'm just gonna go with the larger number because I hate running back and forth. Okay, so I would recommend going with this, just a peace of mind. It's an ATF World Standard WS. Now, moving on to the filter. This pretty much is self-explanatory. There's no need to even talk about. This is worth talking about. Okay, realize the location of the bolt in relation to this hole. This one is universal. Why am I talking about this? Well, if you go to a parts store and you look at some of these transmission kits, you're gonna find out that for a 4-speed, by the way, not a 5-speed, so we're only talking about a 4-speed here, 4-speed automatic, is that Wix has a bolt pattern skewed off a little bit, like this bolt. This hole is like right here, and this one is like right here. Okay, so it's a bit tricky. I don't know why. They probably have different types. And I'm taking a hunch that this is the correct one, because the Wix one on their system was on a separate line, whatever, and they had no designation, but it was falling under the 4-speed automatic transmission. So if the front counter is dumb enough, he'll sell you the Wix. But under the 4-speed transmission, the two that are specific are with this bolt pattern, with this location. So another thing to give you a heads up. Nothing here. Here's the O-ring. Don't forget about this O-ring. Make sure you don't leave it, the original one. You make sure you take the original off, because you're gonna, damn it. Okay, see that? I mean, it's very self-explanatory. It's just, it looks dramatic, that the fact that you have to take this off. So I was telling you about these is because it came off the plastic pan, and these are known to break. So you don't have to run back and forth. Just buy yourself this ahead of time, okay? As far as a drain tool, it's an Allen T10, I believe it's called. Okay, and that's what you'll need to open up that plug. This plug, Allen T10. Okay, you're better off taking this off. I was hoping to keep it on there, but I took it off. More access room, better workspace. This is your filter bolts. This is your pan bolts. This is your plastic undercover bolts. This is your structural frame bolts. 17 mil, 10 mil on all of them. So see the outline? Kind of loosely tighten them, so that way you can position them to the old markings, where the bolts are. Because obviously you're going to have to put this back. And same idea over here, use common sense. See how the plastic clips on here? So yeah, pop that in there. And in case you were wondering, what kind of diff oil it takes. There it is. That's for differential, not transmission, differential. Transfer oil. Well, folks, this is what 78,000 miles look like. The tranny fluid was black. I almost want to say Chuck black. And at 78,000, pretty sure it's the original one, because you're supposed to be changing them, I think, every 40,000 or 50. But it's looking black at 78. So kind of refocusing here, give you a close-up idea of what you will be looking at. Notice thread lock, and notice that there's no any kind of gasket sealer. That's a big plus. Saves the hassle. Besides, there shouldn't be any. It's a fairly new car, etc., etc. So there is that filter. Now, see the bolt pattern on that in relations to the hole? So my hunch was right. I went what was under the spec for the 4-speed. Apparently Wicks, in an O'Reilly store, Wicks brand, has a different, the bolts are skewed. These bolts are skewed. See, in relation to this hole. So you're looking at an old gasket. You're looking at an old filter. Pay close attention to how those bolts, the holes are positioned. I'll save you the headache and the extra trip to the store. You see those little square things look like those are pretty sure those are your magnets. I haven't touched it yet. I'm just kind of illustrating what you're looking at. Black, isn't it? That's quite black for should have done 60,000 to be honest, but anyways, transmission fluid. Transmission fluid is really not a detergent type. To some extent it is, but definitely not like motor oil. And what does it mean? It means it feels a lot like butter, like melted butter when it cools off on your hands. It's very greasy, very slimy. What does that tell you? The aluminum frame to where this gasket sits on your car, so you're gonna have to think about this, is gonna have that buttery slime on it. It is for this reason why I'm gonna use rubbing alcohol, wipe it down and wipe it down again, because transmission is still leaking out of there, it's still dripping out of there. But it's gonna allow me to peace of mind to have is that the gasket that's gonna go on there is not gonna be leaking. You know what I mean? Is that for that reason I want to make sure the place where the gasket sits on is actually properly sealed. So a couple things about the filter. It has that rubber O-ring, right? Where you'd have to press in the filter. Keep in mind, the housing where it presses into, over there, underneath there, is chamfered. So those who say, oh, make sure it's planted, see, the thing is, it's chamfered. So as long as you guide it in there and press it in there. The reason you press it in there is because your bolts, you'll notice that your bolts are going to have to tighten, and you'd rather press it in there first before you tighten the bolts. That's the thing I want to point out. It's going to be important for you to know that. I went around with that rubbing alcohol to clean it out, and look at that. It's still leaking. Still leaking down there. Thank God this is gravel. Still looks like shit. I usually don't like this kind of a job right here. I hate when I have to spill. Anyways, so filter was correct. Rubber O-ring is in place. Typically it's 25 pounds torque on that, just a hand tight, because that's what it took to take it off. These bolts are not stretchy bolts, so as long as you maintain torque, you're fine. Yeah. So this is how the magnets are positioned after it's cleaned out. The gasket in place. See what I did with the bolts there? I put most of them in there. I don't want to put all of them because it is going to be a hassle to go one by one, but I think once I get these in, I shouldn't have issues putting remaining bolts back in. So all cleaned out, green simple, pretty much did the job. Used rubbing alcohol underneath the gasket on the pan to make sure there's nothing buttery and oily crap on there. And I'm going to tighten that back in. And by the way, the shop told me this job is approximately $260, $270, whereas the filter is 26 bucks and 6 quarts the dealer hooked me up for 50 bucks. You do the math.